Welcome to Football Never Sleeps, a special Friday recruiting edition with Tom Lemming, actually in his car on the road, recruiting analyst Tom Lemming of Prep Football Report. I'm Eric Hansen, not in my car, here in South Bend, Indiana, a little nasally today, but I think we'll be able to pull through it. And we'll be taking your questions throughout the course of the show, so fill up the question queue. You guys have already started to fill that up. We're going to talk about the state of Notre Dame recruiting, their new recruiting staff, what's going on with the old GM and his recruiting staff out at USC and what impact it might be having on Notre Dame, and all kinds of things as it relates to recruiting. So Tom, again, thank you for joining us. Do you want to tell everybody about the journey you're on, how many miles, how many days, and where you are right now?
Well, you can see the Expressway 405 or 5 up there. I'm in between Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. I just saw cornerback Josiah Molden, who Notre Dame's offering. I think Notre Dame has a good shot. His dad played 8 years in the pros. His brother's now 6 years in the pros. Outstanding cornerback, one of the best in the country. It's Notre Dame, Oregon, USC right now. He's 27. Love the kid on film. He's a great personality, too. He's a Notre Dame type of a kid. So Mike Mickens, one of the best recruiters, is doing a good job with him, and it's a matter of reeling him in now. But he's 27, so they got some time for him.
And so you're on an 11,000-mile, 24-day journey. How many guys will you see during that time?
About 300. I've passed the 7,000 mark right now. That's why I'm a little sore sitting around all the time, but it's been very fruitful. I think everybody in Notre Dame's offered, and including Michigan, Ohio State, west of the Mississippi, I've seen on this trip for 26 and 27. So it's worked out great. Matter of fact, the big defensive tackle from Mater Dei announced I was there with him. Chad Bowden, Notre Dame's former general manager, called me. I was at Mater Dei High School, and he said, hey, because I saw there were 11 kids there, and I was missing one, their best player. So he was over at USC, so Chad sent him back over to me, but Chad said, he's the greatest player I've ever seen, and he committed to USC that minute. And so Chad's doing a great job at USC, and they're number one in recruiting right now.
Okay. So what's next on your agenda? What do you have coming up, let's say, in the next couple days that relates to Notre Dame?
Tomorrow, I've got every top player in Washington just about meeting me over at Bellevue High School in the morning. And I'll be doing interviews and taking pictures of all the top players, little videos of each kid. I know most of the coaches there, like I know around the country because I've been doing it for 47 years. So almost everyone's going to be there for 26 and 27 and a couple of 28 guys. So it should be pretty good. And then I leave Seattle, drive to Boise, Idaho for tomorrow morning. Then I drive to Salt Lake City. And then I'll drive to Denver, then Omaha, and then Des Moines, and straight up to South Dakota, and then Minneapolis, Wisconsin, and then home, hopefully. With a few other stops in the way. I'm not going directly. I got to hit players in Utah, which is a beautiful state to drive through. And then I'm driving all the way through the state of Wyoming, which is about 500-something miles just to get through it. So I'm seeing the countryside, which I like to do. It's a beautiful country. Love the history of it. And matter of fact, off to my right, way up there is Mount St. Helens. So I can see that now because it's a unbelievably clear day in Washington, which normally you don't see often.
Okay. Well, we're going to set the stage first, and then we'll get into some questions for you, Tom, from me, and questions from our viewers. Notre Dame is 13th in the Rivals team rankings with 7 commitments. Tyler James has recently put in 6 future cast predictions of top targets he believes will commit to Notre Dame. And there are a couple more who appear to be moving in that direction. We'll get to those individually soon. The names are defensive end Rodney Dunham, defensive tackle Tiki Hola, running back Javian Osborne, linebacker Jacoby Clapper, wide receiver Kadon Finley, and defensive end Ebenezer Ewatade. And I probably butchered at least 3 of those names. But Tom, if all those come to fruition, does this change the way that you're viewing the trajectory of Notre Dame's recruiting class?
It helps, but I don't rank guys this early. Schools, it's ridiculous. If you remember, all the rankings had Notre Dame number 1, I think, each of the past 3 years, and then they fall out of the top 10. It's a year-long process, not an early process. Recruiting always goes to the tortoise, not the hare. And all the guys you just mentioned are very good players. I think Ebenezer might potentially be the best of all of them. Some people have done him ranked as a 5-star. I don't. I've seen him each of the last 3 years in person. He's got weight and strength to gain. His stats are good, but they're not great, which would belong to a 5-star player. But he has very good potential, as does Finley. I've seen Caden, they won a couple state titles when he's there at Aledo, which is just even west of Fort Worth. So it's out in the middle of nowhere. But I went there a couple times to see him. And Finley's good. He's not real big, but he catches the ball well. And I knew his dad was one of my All-Americans too. So I like him. All the guys you mentioned. Osborne is an outstanding running back. And the way Notre Dame coaches running backs and recruit him, I would say that he's going to fit in perfectly. I was really impressed with their new running back coach when I met him last month. I'd always been going to Penn State, and I think I met him, but I talked to him longer now at Notre Dame than I had ever in the past. And he was also in my magazine, but he's a terrific recruiter. So I think I look for Notre Dame to land a couple of big-time running backs with Jawan really recruiting him. I think he's that good. And he joins Mickens and some of the other guys as some of the top recruiters on the staff.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to go to some of the viewer questions first, and then we'll get into some more of my questions. And this first one comes from Brian Habermill. And Brian says, what are your impressions of the new recruiting staff? I've never really been huge into recruiting, but know Tom Lemming is one of the first and best in the business. So with that compliment in mind, what is your answer about the new recruiting staff, Mike Martin and his guys and gals?
It's too early to tell. It's too early to tell. I met Mike Martin. He's a real personable guy. He's taken Chad's place, so he's got big shoes to fill, which means here's the way I do it. I've just seen everybody Notre Dame's offered west of the Mississippi in the last couple of weeks. Just about. I'm seeing 3 more up in Seattle tomorrow. And the key is when you talk to a player whose name I just finished, like I said, Josiah Molden, he right away mentioned Mike Mickens, which means Notre Dame is right in the middle of it. Not just a Notre Dame offer, but I said, who's the coach recruiting or the in-house guy recruiting? If they don't know names, that means you don't have much of a shot to land them. They know the guys that they want to eventually go to 2 or 3 top schools, and they know the names. Everyone knows the head coach's name, but it comes down to, do you know the assistant coach's name or the general manager or the recruiting coordinator? Everyone knew Chad's name at Notre Dame like they know at USC. It takes some time for these guys to get going. I know Carter Alman is now the recruiting coordinator, and I think he does a real good job. Mike Martin's the general manager. These 2 guys have to be upfront and out there where all the kids know who they are. They got to call them on a weekly basis, develop relationships with them, which is what Oregon and Ohio State and USC and Michigan, Alabama, Georgia, that's what they're doing. So Notre Dame's got to do that. And I think Marcus also has got to stay in touch with the big name guys. Just work them like crazy and go after them. I know Lincoln Riley, when I was out he's talked to all the USC top guys. They've got a good group already committed. But when I talked to him, I said, who do you talk to? They mentioned Chad and they mentioned Lincoln Riley, the head coach. Same thing with Dan Lanning in Oregon. Molden just told me he's talked to Lanning and he's talked to the cornerback coach at Oregon. But he has not talked to Lincoln Riley yet. So that, because those are the 3 big schools I think he's interested in, Notre Dame, Oregon, and the USC is a top-notch corner. So I do believe that you have to know when you're recruiting. I see all these guys in person. If they don't know the name of the coach that's a school that's offered, that means you got very little chance of landing that player. And that's a good way of finding out. Also, when I have them, I ask them to give their name, their high school, and who comes to your mind right away as schools. Try to catch them off balance. Almost always they'll mention the top 3 or 4 schools right in the very beginning. If they don't, that means at this stage you don't have much of a shot. You can catch up, stage I see him, you don't have much of a shot.
Okay, you mentioned Chad Bowden, and you mentioned you were just in California. So let's go down that road a little bit. You mentioned recruiting is, a year-long thing. It's not an early game. So are we making too much out of what Chad Bowden's doing so far, or is this something Notre Dame needs to be concerned about? Is it for real?
We might be, because Chad had Notre Dame #1, I think, the last 3 years early, and then they fell out of the top 10. What happened at USC, you don't know. He's got a great base. Southern Cal is an absolutely loaded area of big-time players. He was telling the players, we got to make sure that the big name, the guys here have to come home to USC. Something that Notre Dame should be doing with Chicago, because, you can go 3 hours. Southern Cal is still counted as part of Southern Cal territory. And Chicago's only, south side's a little over just 1 hour away. The north suburbs, 2 hours. That should be Notre Dame's backyard also. But again, 2 of the top players in Chicago have committed to Chad at USC, Greg Williams and then Jones, the defensive end from Mount Carmel. So Notre Dame still has a lot of work to do in the Chicago area. And if they do, they've got the ability really to dominate Chicago if they want. And it's just a matter of if they want. But that's, like I said before, and you know it too, Eric, this August, there were 60 players from the Chicago area, suburbs and all that, listed in NFL rosters. 60.
Right. So
really, and whenever Notre Dame wins a national title, it's loaded with Chicago players. So hopefully they can get back into it. Not that, you still got to recruit nationally, but it's a lot easier to get kids from Chicago, and they're more likely to stay when the going gets rough because they're local and the parents can come and see them. You go after a Deuce Knight in southern Mississippi, chances are you're going to lose him. Or the May kid who's southern Alabama, chances are you're going to lose him. Every now and then you'll get some because they've got good success in North Carolina, other places, and then Catholic schools on the West Coast. The Trinity League in California is fantastic, as is the league with D.C. and Maryland and North Jersey and the Chicago Catholic League. If Notre Dame hits those 4 areas and do a great job, they're going to win national titles.
Right. Okay. Let's get to some, and we're going to get into more Chicago recruiting later in the show. Let's go to Jeff Stevens. When ND makes the first offers for 2027 QB, who do you think they will target?
I think it's a weak year, 2027. I think Gino is an outstanding recruiter and a good quarterback coach. And I think what he's got to do is sit back and wait until he's sure of the guy he wants. 26 was a little easier, getting grubs. There were a lot of good ones out there. This one, I've been around almost the entire country now. I saw the kid in Connecticut. I will be seeing the kid in Massachusetts. Taylor. There's a couple guys in Chicago that I think they're kind of hesitant on. I don't think there's one knockout guy yet. So Gino's playing it smart. He's waiting for that knockout guy to show himself that he's not only got a great arm, he can move himself around the pocket. He's smart. He reads well. Team leader. Takes a while. There's no one jumping back at Notre Dame. If they took a guy now, it could come back to bite him in the butt. So I think they're smart enough to sit back and wait and see how some of these guys develop.
Okay, we have Brian Habermill again. How does ND have more success recruiting receivers, or am I just being impatient?
No, he's not being impatient at all. The easiest position to recruit are wide receivers. They're everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's great wide receivers. It's just a matter of, I've always thought the last couple of years, they didn't have enough guys on their board. I think they felt confident, and they lost everyone they felt confident about. The key is recruit more players. You're going to get your share. You're Notre Dame. You're going to get guys that want to come in and play at Notre Dame. But you got to stay on them. Find them as freshmen. Find them as sophomores. And then stay on them. The key words are always in recruiting is perseverance. Yeah, is I think the key word. But also, you got to have production too. But personality and perseverance, as far as the coach is concerned, the perseverance means that you got to stay on top of it. You find them as a sophomore, talk to them as often as possible, build that relationship up. Because you're Notre Dame, you got everything going for you, really. Everybody said, oh, they got bad weather. Ohio State and Michigan have bad weather. It didn't seem to hurt them at all either. It's not the bad weather. They got great academics, the highest graduation rate, unbelievable facilities that are still coming even more. Tradition is great. Job placement is great. They got everything going for them, but it comes down to making sure that player knows about it. Notre Dame's got a name Taylor Bell and I in the Sun Times about 25 years ago asked the top 100 players where Notre Dame was, and less than 50% knew it was Indiana. So they greatness and their history and everything else. And that's up to not only the coaches, but the in-house people that are on these guys every day, sending them stuff, showing them a lot of love, because the kids are a little different than they were 47 years ago when I started. They need a lot of love now. They need constant attention. If you don't offer them early, that could come back to hurt you also, because they're always looking at, oh, this school offered me. How come it took you 2 years? I think Max Sutter is one of them, guys like that. The tight end, I saw him 2 years ago at Wisconsin. Wisconsin had offered him. I think Iowa, Minnesota. Notre Dame recently offered him, and they're going after him. But early on, he didn't have him in the top 5. They're still working on him. But if they had offered him a year ago, I think they would have a great shot at landing him. They still might, but it'd been a lot easier for them. And I see that all over the country. I know I like their pot of gold idea, but sometimes maybe they're waiting a little bit too late, unless they're actually offering them and telling them, don't say nothing until the pot of gold day, which might be happening. I can see that. But they should be offering a lot of 2028 guys also, because I've seen a lot of great players that have offers from 2028 by Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Alabama. USC has offered a ton of 2028 players out here on the West Coast, as has Oregon.
Tom, one question I get, and I'm kind of following up on what Brian asked about the wide receivers a little bit, is there was an expectation after Notre Dame played for the national championship that this would show up right away in recruiting. Do you think that they will eventually get a bump from being in the national championship game that'll either result in more commitments, more visits, more awareness about what state Notre Dame is in, any of those things?
Yeah, I think the bump could come later. What happened now with Notre Dame and Ohio State being in the national title game, they only had 1 week to recruit until the dead period happened at the end of January. So it really hurt them. They couldn't get out there. I was just in the middle of nowhere, Sutter Union, California. It took me forever to get off Interstate 5 yesterday to go see this kid, but he's an outstanding ball player, Troy Bowen. Notre Dame's offered him. Troy Bowen's, and he's 6'5", 250 defensive end. Al Washington's talked to him, but he couldn't go see him because they're in the championship game. But Notre Dame's got a good shot at him, as does USC and Oregon, the usual suspects out here. And he's the doctor ordered. If he had played in Chicago, he'd have 50 offers by now. As it is, he's got 12 because no one goes to that school. He's only had one school go to it. Oregon, believe it or not, went there. Oregon's got one of those staffs that they seem to be relentless. They don't sleep. They're just everywhere. They're offering guys all over the country. Now with Chad at USC, they're doing the same thing. And so Notre Dame's got to do that. They've got new people in their office. One of the great recruiters I've seen over the past 40 years was the late John Blake. John actually traveled with me when he wasn't coaching before he got to Nebraska and in between Mississippi State. This guy was a fantastic recruiter. He would talk to kids for me when I would drive around California. His son is now on Notre Dame staff. And that means if he's got any of that recruiting acumen rubbed off on his son, that means he's great. And I know they got a former player of Polynesian persuasion coming in as a recruiter. And that really helps because almost everybody, at least half the guys they offered on the West Coast are Polynesian. And these kids are great players. They're great people. They've got great tradition. And I think if you get a Polynesian, I know Notre Dame should use Manti Te'o. He's still a big name with the Polynesian. Everyone knows who Manti Te'o is. They all admire him. So Notre Dame's got a Polynesian tradition, as does Oregon and USC. But Notre Dame's got one too. So it's a matter of just getting guys to work on them, because I think that's another way for them to get some great players off the West Coast.
Right. And for our viewers, Tom was referencing Myron Tungavaloa Amosa, who is a former defensive tackle for Notre Dame, just recently joined Mike Martin's recruiting staff. So we have another question for you, Tom, and it is, does Tom live in his car? From Jeff Stevens.
You know, I don't. I used to when I started out in 1978, 79, 81. I used to sleep in my car every other day and sometimes 2 straight days to save money on hotels. But, you know, when you're in your early 20s, it's kind of an adventure. Hey, I'm out here in Boise, Idaho, sleeping in my car. But now when you're 70 years old, it's not the greatest thing to do. So I'd rather just stay in a nicer hotel. But I do. When you're 11,000 miles in 24 days, believe me, you're going to have to be in the car most of the time. Fortunately, I work when I'm home, and I'm able not to have any back problems or neck problems when I drive. Because if I did that, it'd be torture driving. I'm averaging 500 miles a day. Today's another 500-mile day, and starting from Medford, Oregon, all the way up through Seattle. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, and just a follow-up. I mean, I think, to my knowledge, the only person that does what you do in terms of driving all around the country and seeing everybody. What do you feel like is the advantages of that are over just seeing kids in a camp setting or just talking to them on the phone? What do you feel like you get out of this 11,000 mile, 24-day trip, which isn't the only one you take during the year?
No, I drive about 6,000 miles total for the year traveling for football. And it's a great advantage because nobody else does this. A lot of the internet people who are good, but they'll call the kids on the phone. You go to a combine, you can't really tell. There's 600 kids at a combine. They all got numbers. Who's that? So you got to wait for results. And anybody can get results. So I don't think I go to combines. We have one at the U.S. Army game. Most of and the good players rarely go to combines because they don't have 20 to 60 offers already. For me to go on the road, this is what I just did with I just spent an hour with Josiah Molden, and I look him in the eye and I could tell him, I said, how important is football to you? And, he tells you, and you could tell he may be a great athlete and he dominates in high school, but when he goes up against guys as big and as fast as him and as talented as him, how important is football? How much work you're going to put in? I think it's important to look him in the eye, see each guy, also to see if he's the size he says he is. And I can tell within an inch how these guys are exaggerating or they're weight-wise. And so if they look like a big-time player, that's one of the points. You got to look like one most of the time. And then you watch them on film and see if they play like one. And I've seen a lot of 6'5", 6'2", 270-pound guys that are just average in high school. They don't dominate. They don't get 15 sacks a year. But they're getting a lot of offers because of their size. The fact is, all the 47 years I've been doing this, if a guy doesn't play well in high school, 99% of the time, they're not going to play well in college. They rarely get developed. Sometimes they may get developed if they keep growing in college. They were skinny, like J.J. Watt was skinny in high school, developed through Central Michigan, then Wisconsin. They turned into a great one. But for the most part, if you're already looking the part, but you're not playing the part, like coaches say, no, it looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. That's a factor. A lot of the guys. Heart is very important because everybody's being strong in college football, especially in the NFL. It all comes down to how much you really want it. And that's important to look these guys in the eye physically. And also, I could say I've seen every top guy in the country in person, starting back with Dan Marino and Eric Dickerson back in the class of 79, Reggie White in the class of Chattanooga Howard, or Herschel Walker, and then Bo Jackson and Marcus Dupree the next year. So I've seen all these guys in person when they're in high school, and you could tell a five-star almost always. And that's why I say some of these five-star guys are ranked as five-star. I kind of wonder if they are. You got to have great production, not only look the part, but you got to play the part to be a five-star. You don't project five stars because half the time you're going to be wrong.
Okay, we have a question from Something Simple. Hey, Tom, thoughts on Endy's hiring of J1 Sider and your impressions of him so far on the recruiting trail for the Irish? Thank you.
He's a win. He's a big win for Notre Dame. It's a great hire. He was great at Penn State, and he's doing well at Notre Dame. The running back out of Texas, Osborne, who I've seen as a freshman, sophomore, junior, he's going to be on the cover of my magazine, along with I think 40 other seniors to be from Texas. They all met me before the Notre Dame game down in College Station. This is a big time back. I really like him. He's doing great with the kid in Georgia, Walton, who I think is freshman better than him. So he's got some good backs. I know the kid from Harrisburg didn't switch, which I understand too. Once you give a commitment, you're supposed to be committing to the school. I know the position coach is important, but so is the head coach.
Okay.
Everybody's stealing everybody else's player days. You can't keep track of it. And what I with these 7-on-7s, around Florida, Georgia. A lot of these high school kids are going to 4 different high schools, which means they go to college. First thing that happens they don't like, they're going to be gone. That's why you'll see a lot of them going to 2, 3 different schools in college too. So it's a different world that we're dealing with these college football players. My magazine goes to the printer around July 1st. By the time it comes out a week later, there's about 50 guys that have switched high school. So it's not like it used to be. So I wasn't keep track of all these guys.
Okay, we have another one, and then I want to get into your magazine and some of the stuff that you're doing and promote some of your content, Tom. So let's do Rajon's question here. And has Tom ever advised? Rajon is from Massachusetts, and he actually sent me some smiley stickers. Anyways, Rajon won the Dump Davy contest. He got a Dump Davy bumper sticker for, I don't remember what Rajon did, but I think it had the best question of the night once. But this one is, has Tom ever advised a coach to stay away from a player because he thought the kid had an attitude problem or such? Have you ever done that, Tom?
All the time. I started it with, because I was on the ground floor of the U.S. Army game and did the broadcast for 14 years. When we were all by ourselves, I could tell because there's a player in Florida that told his mom to shut up in front of me.
Wow. Oh, you just froze up, Tom. That we'll have to redo the answer as soon as you unfreeze yourself. So I don't know if Tom didn't pay his cell phone bill. This is the one downside of trying to do this from the road, but I think it's fun because it brings some authenticity to what Tom is doing. I'm going to X him out of here and have him sign back in. So hopefully he can do that real quick. For you guys that aren't familiar with Tom, I've known Tom since I first got into the business covering college sports back in the early 80s. Tom already had a head start on being in this business at that time. He had been in it a few years. It was a few more years before I actually first came in contact with him. And throughout my career, he's been a great resource. I think he's the best in the business at what he does. He's based out of the Chicago area. He has a publication called the Prep Football Report. It's a big, thick print publication. You can also get it digitally. He's been doing that for decades. He used to have a 900 number. He doesn't do that anymore because they don't have 900 lines. But okay, it looks like Tom is back. We're going to try to add him to the stage. See if we can get him. He's a big spinning circle right now. So again, earlier in the show, as we're waiting for Tom to stop being a circle, Tyler James did put in 6 future casts for guys that he believes will commit to Notre Dame, and just in the last day, defensive end Rodney Dunham, defensive tackle Tiki Hola, running back Javion Osborne, linebacker Jacoby Clapper, wide receiver Kadon Finley, and defensive end Ebenezer Awatade. Sam Spiegelman, our national recruiting analyst for Rivals, also is very high on Notre Dame with regard to a couple other prospects that aren't as far along in their process, but that feels like Notre Dame is leading for those guys. And so Notre Dame is picking up some momentum here. Let's see. See if Tom has paid his cell phone bill or not. He is a circle again. And so far, we are not having a whole lot of success with this as Tom is on the side of the road off of I-5 between Portland, Oregon, and Seattle. Some of the things that I want to talk about, Tom, and keep filling up the queue with questions because we're going to get to them. But some of the things that I wanted to hit with Tom myself were the Chicago connection. I know that Tom feels like Notre Dame in some coaching staffs, especially with the Brian Kelly staff, didn't take a full advantage of how close Chicago is. The number of prospects that are there just didn't take full advantage of it when they really have a big advantage in Chicago. So, okay, Rajon tells me the smiley faces. Well, let's just put it up on the screen so we can read it together. Credit to a guy from my hometown, Harvey Ball. That's why I sent them to Eric. Okay. Well, I could definitely use the smiley faces, and I gave some of them to my grandkids, and they seem to really enjoy them, especially I call them in the order of their birth. Number 4 and number 6 were the ones that were most thrilled with that. Hang on here. Let's see what. Tom, how are you doing? I am talking to you while I'm on live. What happened is I can't get you back on. You disappeared, and then when I've tried to add you back on, this is probably really entertaining for everybody. You just are a circle kind of going around. Okay. Do you want to try it one more time and see if we can try it that way? I don't know that if we can get it to work from the phone. I guess I could put you on speaker and try to have you go through my microphone and stuff. We can try that. I mean, this is two guys that are technologically challenged, but we're going to make it work. So try now to see if you can get on. If not, call me back and we'll try your. All right. Okay. I don't know if you guys heard that. This is again. I don't even know if Tyler James could save us with this setup. But Tom is going to try to connect again through StreamYard on the road, and we'll see if he is right now. This is what we've been having the issue with, is the circle, and Jeff says, hey, this is better than watching the financial news channel. Well, thank you. What we're going to try to do, I think, is have Tom call. I don't know if this is going to work, and put him on speakerphone and have him talk through that, so you won't be seeing him. You'll be stuck seeing me, but we'll still be able to do the questions and answers, and I'll still be able to ask him things. So let's try that. And I think that's the best we can do at this point. You're stuck seeing me on full screen, but let's try that and see if we can make that work, because nothing else is. Okay, let's try this. I'm going to ask why don't you talk, Tom, a little bit, and let's see if our listeners can hear you. So go ahead and say something brilliant.
Well, that's impossible for me to say anything brilliant. So can you hear me?
Okay, I need you guys to weigh in to see if you can hear Tom through the speakerphone, because that's what we're doing right now, and this is the best that we can do. And then I'm getting feedback that it sounds good. So let's continue with this. So why don't you tell us? They said perfect. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Prep Football Report, why you do it, how you get to it. Then we're going to get back to some more questions. So keep filling up the queue, and I've got some for you too, Tom.
Okay, well, the magazine has been going for 47 years, and now it's 240 pages, profiles on all the top players in the country, including everybody Notre Dame offers. I see all in person, talk to the kids, stay in touch, their parents stay in touch, and That's why I like traveling around the country. I'll see everybody. Especially I zero in on Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, the big schools in the Midwest, but also USC, Penn State fans, because there's a lot of fans at those schools. So I'll see everybody, talk to them. Not just, and then I do little videos of them for Twitter before the magazine comes out, and before I reveal all the information on each kid. And I think that's it. The magazine's always, the senior magazine is available August 1st, and the underclass, all the guys at schools like Notre Dame offer 2027 and 2028 are in the magazine September 1st, the second magazine, which is about 120 pages. So I try to keep track of everybody, not only just the seniors to be, but also the sophomore and juniors to be for the magazine. Like I went to Mater Dei, Bosco, all their top freshmen. I made sure I had them in the magazine coming up, so all the kids, and I'll stay in touch with them all year. So it's a year process. But I'm very proud of the magazine because I take all the pictures and get all the. We're having our big group in Chicago on May 4th, and every top player in Illinois will be there. So,
and I'll be there.
See, that's kind of a big draw for the kids. Right?
Is it? There you go. Because they think I'm buying lunch. My grandkids have told them I'm Santa Claus, so they're looking for gifts.
And then some of it goes, I do TV shows around the country, and I'll do some of it for that. But I used to do 22 shows after COVID. I kind of cut down, but I still do some at different networks too. So it works out good. And I do most of the Butkus Award stuff and the All-American stuff. I'm the lead guy now for the U.S. Army All-American game. So I'll select players for that. So that's why I'm on the road so much.
Okay. Let's see. If you did something, Eric, it helped the volume. Okay. All this is working good. This seems like the way to go. This is old school, so we're gonna continue with this. well, they're stuck seeing my face. They're not seeing yours. I think it was a lot better when my face was smaller on the screen, but hopefully they're not running for the bottle of bourbon. And then where can people find more about the Prep Football Report? What's your website URL?
Well, it's the same that I do Twitter on. It's @Lemming Report for Twitter. But to get the magazine, they'll have it on Twitter on my front page there. But you go to TomLemmingPrepFootball.com and you get the magazine that way. And you'll see a lot of previews on it and stuff. But I still love doing it. I mean, it's gotten bigger. In my first year, the 79 was 6 pages stapled together to make it 12 pages, and then 1980 and 81 was then up to 82, 83 yellow paper. It had on like 24 pages. Then I separated the country in 3 different sections: the Midwest section, the East and the West, but now it's all one big magazine for the past 25 years.
Okay, somebody asked me to put your link to your site in the chat, and I will do that when I get to a point where Tom is giving me a long answer to something. I'll have a chance to do that, which is always. So stay tuned for that. Well, we talked a little bit earlier about Chicago and the importance. Why do you think that isn't a constant for every coaching staff at Notre Dame? And what is maybe Marcus doing to remedy that? Are you seeing enough of that with this regime?
Not yet, but hopefully you will. I think part of it is nobody's from Chicago on the staff, and that hurts. I mean, they did have Tommy Reese, but he didn't hit Chicago. He had Chicago, but didn't really hit it. Besides Riley Mills from his own high school, I don't remember him getting too many other guys. And they just kind of downplayed Chicago while all the top players are going to Michigan and Ohio State. Alabama got one, and they were going different places. Iowa would get 5 to 7 a year, as was Wisconsin, and a lot of those guys went up in the NFL. It could be, and they're a lot more loyal to Notre Dame being so close to home, and a lot of them having ties to the Catholic League to Notre Dame and all that. And it makes no sense why they don't. I've always been shocked. Bob Davie didn't do it. Charlie Weiss didn't really do it. Tyrone definitely didn't do it. Holtz did it. Eric Parsegian did it. Frank Lee, New Rockney, all recruited Chicago hard. The last time they won a national title, I've said this before, but secondary had George Streeter and Sense Magala. Defensive line, you had Jeff Allman
Chris Zorich, offensive line, I think Lindsey Knapp and Tim Grunhard and Joe Allen, all these guys. And I think, I'm not sure Merkel was on that team or a year after that. All from Chicago. Backup quarterback Kent Graham behind Tony Rice. Then he left, played at Ohio State, and he spent 10 years in the NFL. So, I mean, there was a lot. And now you got 60 players, only 2 from Notre Dame, Kameta and Love, that are from the Chicago area. So there's 58 guys that are in the NFL, or at least were on rosters in August that could have been recruited by Notre Dame, but they weren't. And I think that's just a shame since it's really their backyard. There aren't many players in Elkhart and South Bend that Notre Dame recruits. But since Chicago's an hour away, they should be there to say, this is our backyard. This is our, just like Chad's doing now at Southern California, because USC struggled the last several years because they weren't in Southern Cal. And I think Georgia toughed that to all their players. This is this. And all things being equal, we could bring in a kid from Chicago, but all things being equal, we're going to play the Georgia kid. Alabama the same way. Definitely Ohio State. They make a big deal about it. You got to come to Ohio State and play here. So Notre Dame should be doing that with Chicago, and when they do, they win national titles. When they don't, a lot of times they'll struggle. So Mark is doing a good job recruiting, but they could do an even better job if they really zoom in on the Chicago kids early, stay on top of them, build relationships, and you watch. They'll have a steady stream of Chicago kids going to Notre Dame.
Somebody in our on our message board asked me to ask you this about specifically Mount Carmel and Brother Rice. How important are those 2 schools in the next couple of recruiting cycles for Notre Dame?
Exceptionally important, especially Mount Carmel. They got Bone Crusher as a freshman. This kid is the best defensive tackle in the class of 2028. He's got grades. He's the kind of kid that belongs in Notre Dame. He talked to his mother. Al Washington already offered him, so they did offer a 2028 kid. When you're nicknamed Bone Crusher, you should zoom in on that guy right away. But he's a great kid. He's at a school that almost always sends their kids to Notre Dame if they do the job right. But they lost the senior to beat Jones to Chad and USC. And that shouldn't happen either. So, I mean, he's a big-time defensive end. They even had a guy, Joey Quinn, who's gained 25 pounds of muscle since last year. He just committed to Vanderbilt, grew up as a big Notre Dame fan. I would have looked at him a lot more because I think he's going to be a star. And, well, they got a kid, Harrington, who just got offered by Alabama, linebacker at Mount Carmel. 1 hour away from Notre Dame. Notre Dame hasn't offered him yet. And that's just, to me, that's a shame. Notre Dame should be along with Northwestern Illinois, the first schools to offer these guys when you see them, watch them on film. You don't have to wait for Alabama to offer Georgia. You go after these guys, and if you're one of the first schools and you're Notre Dame, most chances are real good you're going to get these guys. So I like the way they're recruiting around the country. Mark is an excellent recruiter. However, they've always left a little bit to be desired in the Chicago area. And you saw what Holtz did when he got there and had all these guys from Chicago when he won the national title. And then when he should have won in '93, look at the defensive line. It was a Chicago, Oliver Gibson, Bryant Young, Brian Hamilton, Pete Persich right behind him on linebacker, all Chicago kids. And then all of a sudden there's a big drop-off. You know why? Because Bob Davie forgot about Chicago, didn't get hardly anybody out of there. Followed by very few. We got Tommy Zibikowski by accident because he didn't really want him early. And then Charlie, also the same thing. They didn't hit Chicago very well. And I think Marcus, if he has a guy in Chicago, say, hey, and they got a lot of in-house guys now that can do that work for them. Just check out every film and all the guys you're going after and zoom in on them. And I think a lot of times you figure, hey, if we offer early, they may want to come because they're from Chicago, so we're going to offer a little bit later. But a lot of times you offer later, you lose them to other schools because that school's been on them for over a year, and that happens a lot. I mentioned Max Sutter. That's how it happened with Mac. Notre Dame just got on him late from all other schools that offered him a year and a half to 2 years ago. So hopefully their Chicago philosophy of recruiting will change, and when it changes, you'll see a great uptick in really good players coming. I think they have a good shot at Mikhail Blake from Simeon this year. There's a couple of other guys they've offered, the tight end from up north, Brock Williams, who I really like. But Mount Carmel's got a couple of great sophomore freshman wide receivers that I'm sure they're going to be on. I think they offered one of them already. And the Harrington kid they should have offered before, the linebacker, he's 6'4", 215. He can run. Got an Alabama offer. That means he's pretty good.
Okay.
And then you got one other thing.
Okay.
You got Braden Parks, who's Chris Zoric's godson. So if they don't get Braden Parks, they might as well just pack it up and forget about Chicago.
Okay.
Brother Rice.
And what position does Braden Parks play?
He's a defensive tackle, exactly what the doctor ordered for Notre Dame. They need some help at defensive tackle. He's a defensive tackle. He's one of the best in the Midwest. Notre Dame's offered him. So it's a matter of just reeling him in now and help maybe getting Zorich talking to Chris about his godson.
Okay. There's some good comments in our chat that you can't see, but they were complimenting us for being able to pivot to old school technology from the new school technology. So I appreciate it. So Tom, as we kind of look at the big picture of Notre Dame recruiting, again, you said it's early and so forth, but what would be really good signs? Let's look at the months of March and April. What would you consider, okay, this is encouraging signs, things are moving in the right direction? Is it commitments? Is it visits? Is it more kids knowing who Mike Martin is? What would be the signs that you feel like Notre Dame is going to surge?
I met Mike Martin, spent about a half hour with him a few weeks ago when I was in Notre Dame, and he's got a great personality, super intelligent. So if he just does what Chad did, which is start working on these kids and building relationships, you're going to see a big difference because this guy's got a brain and great personality. But it's a matter of him getting out there so these kids remember his name and develop that relationship with him. He is a big key. And so is Carter Allman. He took over for Caleb, who went to San Diego State, who did a real good job. So Carter's got it. And then all the new people in-house, like I said, John Blake's son and the former player Myron. If these guys they got to start developing relationships with the kids on the phone and make that kid want to come to the school. They also got to know about Notre Dame. They got to know the history of the school and sound excited. Chad sounds excited now about USC like he did in Notre Dame, like he did at Cincinnati. He just has that in him. He's got that personality. These guys got to sound like, hey, you know about the Gipper, don't you? You know about Rudy, don't you? You know about New Rockney. You know that we graduate more players than any other school in the country. We place them, and all our students get great placement. I think it's 99% placement before you even graduate. All the things you can say about the school, the history, the grotto, the Golden Dome, the Basilica. There's so much going on at Notre Dame, and the great facilities. And how many guys you put in the NFL? Your 7 Heisman Trophy winners. There's so much to sell, but the people that sell it have to know all this stuff. They got to know and get the kid excited about Notre Dame. Before they even get there, then they get there, it's like they're walking on a cloud. My God, this is better because it's one of the more, I visit almost every campus every year. It's one of the more beautiful campuses in the country. I'd have to put them in the top 5, to be honest with you. And that's another selling point. Get them in the spring, summer, and fall. Maybe don't bring them in January, February when there's snow, but bring them at Christmas time because the way the Golden Dome is lit up and all the Christmas stuff there, a lot of people love that. If they're Christian, they don't have to be Catholic. Just being Christian, they'll love it. And there's so much to sell at the school. It should be an easy sell. They should finish in the top 10 recruiting every year, but they haven't done that in several years. So I think there's a lot to learn. They've got the right guys in place. It's just a matter of falling in, knowing exactly what to do, how to sell the school. And believe me, Notre Dame will have a top 10 class every year. If they don't, then they're probably doing something wrong.
I'll tell you what, Tom, the playoff game, I don't know if that was a weekend that they could recruit, but I'm telling you, the campus was electric. I mean, for a crappy weather day, man, that was a goosebumps day to be on campus at Notre Dame, no matter where you came from or who you were rooting for. That was pretty cool. That was one of the neat experiences I've had in my career.
I was there for the big game every year. This year, probably USC in the middle of the year, next season. And it's an electric place when they're going great. The fans are excited. The fans can play a big part in recruiting. The only thing that has changed is NIL money. So you could get a kid, and you can say all the right things, and then all of a sudden he says, "Yeah, but I want 100,000 more." So that's in the mix now too. But Notre Dame's not a poor school.
Right.
They got money. sometimes they don't want to spend it. You know, I grew up Catholic. I know how the Catholics are about shaking money loose, but I do think that if they want to win a national title, they do have to compete somewhat like Ohio State, Michigan, the Midwest, Alabama, the whole Southeast Conference, USC and Oregon out west. And if they do that, really, they're going to do it. And they certainly have the resources to do that, and I think even NIL money. So it's just a matter of really coming up with it and putting all their efforts. I think having a new athletic director, that really helps, because it sounds like he is all in on having Notre Dame win a national title in football. And I'm not that the other guy wasn't, but I think this guy's a little bit more into knowing. I mean, they got this new building going up quicker than you could even think.
Yeah.
I like the future of Notre Dame. I like the future with Marcus as head coach, his staff. These guys do the job, the in-house staff. I think they have the NIL money to compete with all the big ones. At least they should have that. If not, they'll be in sort of the college football version of the Chicago Cubs. They got the money, they just don't want to spend it.
Tom, as you're going throughout the country and you're talking to these recruits, are they talking about NIL more and revenue sharing? And do you see a difference in how kids kind of approach college football? I mean, do you see a difference in attitude, culture with kids in terms of recruiting? Has that changed?
Without a doubt, it's changed. I'm seeing the top 300 guys west of the Mississippi, so they're all expecting some NIL money. If you're from a family where the dad and mom are very involved with academics, Notre Dame's right in the middle of it. But if you're in a family where your 7-on-7 coach is actually leading the prospect around by the nose and telling the mother what to do, then Notre Dame doesn't really have much of a chance with that kid, because it's all going to be about delivering money. Sort of like the defensive end that came out of Tampa a couple years ago. Notre Dame had him committed Keeley, but you knew something happened. Something changed right away with him, and he chose Alabama for the money. And I'll see that every now and then with a lot of these, not a lot, but some of the kids. But if parents are involved and the parents have been educated, they want the kid to be educated. So education is as important as NIL. But again, I've seen on this trip, I've seen some of the kids that NIL is all everything. They don't mind taking classes online at college as long as they spend more time playing football, watching film, and everything else. So it doesn't look like that it has changed the way people think about recruiting. I think the college coaches have to address recruiting now. They got to know the personality of the kid and how important the money thing is to them. And then they got to either come up with the money or kind of lose to a money school.
I'm curious your take, Tom, on Brian Kelly as a recruiter and the job that he's done at LSU. You know, this is going to be his 4th year at LSU. And I'm wondering what you think about that. And Rajon, thank you for saying hit the like button, because Tyler James always reminds everybody to do that stuff. I forget to tell people to do that, probably because I don't want to be a nagger, but I think we're supposed to do that. Hit the like button, subscribe. I don't know, spin around 3 times, but it's supposed to help us with the algorithm. So thank you for reminding me, Rajon. So back to my question about Brian Kelly. Tom.
Yeah, he was. I thought Brian was a good recruiter when he tried to be. I know he was a golfer, and I've said this, Coach Neuheisel on our show and everything else. And show me a coach who's a prolific golfer like Lou Holtz, Tyrone William, and Brian Kelly. I'll show you a poor recruiter. Not that they're bad in the house. The problem is getting in the house and away from the golf course, and that's always been a problem with Brian. But he got down to LSU with a massive contract, and he put time into it. But I know at Notre Dame, he didn't spend a lot of time calling kids during the season. I think Chad talked about it. He said Lincoln Riley is one of the first coaches he saw that calls kids and watches their film and everything else, because I don't think Brian Kelly called anybody during the year. And I do think that has changed at LSU, because he has to. You're in that Southeast Conference. You're in the conference loaded with ferocious recruiters. Ferocious. Even though Nick's gone, half that group all played under now, coached under Nick, and they know how to recruit, and they're relentless and super aggressive. That's why they're so good. Plus, they got the money. So, and I think Brian's got the money, and it's a matter of just being relentless. And he had the number 1 player in the country last year until Michigan, I think, with Oracle money outbid him for Bryce Underwood. So he was doing a good job. And he lost a couple other guys at the end, another tight end or wide receiver to Alabama. So I thought he was doing a good job, better than he did at Notre Dame, because he knows he has to put time and effort into it. No one at Notre Dame put any pressure on him to spend a lot of time recruiting, and he didn't do that. And I think that was the reason why Notre Dame always comfortably fit between 10 and 20 in recruiting numbers. And Marcus has the ability to finish top 10 every year. It's a matter of him, lighting the fire under all the assistants and all the in-house people. And if he does that, Notre Dame will always have a great recruiting year. And I look for them to have a great year this year if they do the job right.
Beefeater's got some interesting questions that we can't air, but they're amusing. Anyways, I'm going to get this one from Rajon. We're in the lightning round part of this. We're near the end of the show. So if you have a question you've been afraid to ask and it's in good taste, or even if it's not in good taste, I'll be the screener. But get them in now because we're almost done with the show. Rajon wants to know, what does Tom think of these high school kids having agents?
Well, I guess it's smart if they get an agent they can trust. A lot of times it's good to be a lawyer, but a lot of their agents are street guys, street agents, guys that knew the kids, take advantage. Perhaps the kid doesn't have a father, mother's not really aware of what goes on in recruiting. Obviously, why should she? So some of these guys take advantage of the kids. I know normal agents get 3%. Some of the guys agents you have been hearing about get 25% off the player. Probably get money maybe from the college too if he delivers them. So, but that's been going on even before NIL. A lot of these street agents are delivering kids to colleges, and then what I've noticed over the years, and that was even in the late 70s when I started, there was always someone involved. I remember Adrian Peterson met me at a Luby's restaurant near College Station, A&M, and I was putting together a kid group there for their coaches, R.C. Slocum, and he met me at the Luby's. We did the interview and everything else, took the pictures there, and then he was being driven around by a guy who owned a trophy shop in that little Palestine town that he lived in Texas. And then I go, well, come on over and do a group photo with the kids. And no, the trophy agent, who was a Texas guy, wouldn't let him go over there. And he was in control of him until the end when he announced for Oklahoma. And I remember this guy was livid because he thought he put in enough time and effort to get Adrian to go to Texas. So a lot of those big name guys always had those kind of players. Part of the reason why Notre Dame doesn't get a lot of the super big stars is because they all have other things going on that don't direct. Notre Dame doesn't cheat. So they don't direct them to Notre Dame because they're not going to get any money from Notre Dame. So you'll see a lot of big name guys go to certain schools, and not to mention names of schools because I don't want to get in trouble, but some of these schools got the right people behind them, giving the kids money. So people can say, how come we never get a top 25 guy? That's a major reason why. They've already been steered elsewhere. You don't see them going to Stanford or Notre Dame unless they have family ties to that school, or Northwestern or the private schools, the schools that really don't, be in the past put money under the table for the players. So that's part of the big reason why Notre Dame does it. But there's plenty of other great players. If you do evaluations right, which they've been doing, you're getting great players. Linebacker-wise, especially Al Golden and Bulla have done a great job with linebackers coming to Notre Dame. Madden and Hansen and all these great linebackers at Notre Dame. A lot of them are playing on the defensive line, or at least they're pushing them that way. But none of them were top 25, but they all were impact players. And that's all you need to do. Quarterback-wise, they haven't gotten like a superstar. Grubbs is good. And he's not there yet. CJ is. CJ was very good. Steve, if you remember, almost switched to Rutgers because Notre Dame stopped calling him. And his coach, Vito Campanelli, called me and said, Tab, can you find out if Notre Dame's still recruiting him? This is the fall when he's supposed to be committing. So I called up, and then that night, Reese and Kelly called him and got him back in the fold, or else he would have gone to Rutgers. But lack of recruiting almost cost him also. It cost them Steve. So there's a lot of things they can improve on. And I think any school can improve on in recruiting. But I hold out big hopes for Mike Martin to become that personality that Chad was, and start getting these kids back into it. And I think Carter Allman could be that personality also. They've got guys with the personality, and I think the work ethic to do the job. Now it's a matter of just doing it. So I think Notre Dame's got a bright future, and it's just a matter of waiting to see which guys are going to fall in line. I don't expect the top 25 guy to fall again because of the money they're all asking for. But if you can get enough 50 to 100 guys, you're going to be in business.
Jeff Stevens asked, are we, meaning Notre Dame, I think, not you and I, returning to Linebacker U? Do you feel like Notre Dame is recruiting elite linebackers and the talent level is upgrading?
Absolutely, but not returning. Where were they ever great at linebackers? They had Manti, they had Bob Crable. I don't remember.
Jalen Smith. Yeah. Yeah.
The guys there that won, but never 3 or 4 great ones at the same time, like they're getting now. So they haven't. Maybe they did that under Frank Leahy, but I don't remember them doing it under. And even Eric Parsegian didn't have the great ones. Well, he had Bob Olsen, he had some good ones, Jim Lynch, but never the great group. And I think this is going to be. They are offensive line and tight end U at Notre Dame, but I don't think they've ever been linebacker U. But now they could be in the future.
How good do you think the 2 kids are that aren't here yet that are going to be freshmen, Kia and Anthony Saka? How good are those 2?
Kia needs to add weight and strength, but he's athletic. Saka, I think, is going to be one of the big surprises as a defensive end. He's big. Really? He's tough. He's aggressive. He's mean. He's got all the ingredients to be a great defensive end. But he's big. I think he could be 250 in another year or so. So they could probably play him on the weak side or stay at linebacker if they need him. But I don't think they need him at linebacker. I think they could use him on the defensive line. And his dad was one of my All-Americans. I put his dad on the USA Today team years ago as a quarterback. This kid's big. He's tough. Plays at the best program in Pennsylvania, one of the best in the country, and he dominates in that program. So everyone else ranked them lower than I did. I really like Saka. He's got the attitude when he comes in. Like I said, he's a mean, tough kid. It's just a matter of sometimes the mean, tough kids, if they don't play right away, they get mad and they want to leave. So if he has patience, believe me, he's going to wind up as a good player.
Okay. Very good. Well, that is going to hang on here. I don't know what I'm doing here. Let's see here. There we go. I got to turn up the music. Okay, that's going to do it for this recruiting edition of Football Never Sleeps, in which we pivoted to old school technology and we still made it through. Tom, you know what I'd like to do, and I'll ask you in front of everybody else, maybe the weekend that you're going to have all the Chicago kids together, we could do a special show over in Chicago and focus on Chicago recruiting. What would you think about that?
It would be great. It's a lot easier for me to do. One thing, if you want to do it in your studio I go to the South Bend Cubs, we can do it there too. So anything you want, I'll be glad to do it.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining us live, all your great comments and questions, and for putting up with me not having an 8-year-old to show me how to do things technologically better. I'm Eric Hansen. The voice on the phone is Tom Lemming. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks again for being with us.